Well, happy Monday and welcome everybody to Power Talk. I'm your host, Jean Adrienne, and my guest tonight is Catherine Carrigan. She has been on the show many times because she's, I guess, maybe the most prolific author that I know. She's got another book about ready to come out. So, goodness gracious, Catherine, where do you find all the inspiration?
You know, something that your audience is going to find really interesting and probably can relate to. You know, I'm like every other author. I work hard at my writing, and it's not easy, and a lot of tears. But this most recent book hasn't come out yet. Before I wrote it, I asked for guidance, and I was told that Archangel Michael was going to be helping me with my book. And I'm like, okay, well, this has never happened to me before. So I'm like, all right. So every morning I started praying and meditating with Archangel Michael. And I wrote my new book in a month.
Wow.
And, you know, as creative people, as people who write, I know you write a lot of books, Jean. You know, we're always trying to figure out can I make this easier? How can I make the words that flow through me come from guidance, right? You know, how can I channel the highest vibrations? And that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's way cool. So, and the thing that I find with that, Catherine, is that when we're trying, it never happens. When we just like let go, then the guidance shows up.
Absolutely. And it was really funny because I have a client who's clairvoyant. And I wrote an article on my blog, CatherineCarrigan.com, about writing with Archangel Michael, about, meditating and praying and how it happens in a month. Mm-hmm. And my client, who's clairvoyant, she said, Dad explained it. Because she said, usually when I look at you clairvoyantly, there's all this pink light around you. But recently, there's been this cobalt blue light. And that's the frequency of Archangel Michael.
Yep.
So, whoever we are, we have to remember that the angels are always here, and we can pray to them and meditate with them and ask them to help us with whatever we do. And it can be easier when you're working with the angels. Yeah.
Well, and many years ago, because Archangel Michael is one of my big guides, and many years ago, he told me, he said, Jean, you're always saying, well, I'm working with this angel or I'm working with that angel. He said, do you not understand that we're all just aspects of you? And so really what you were doing is you were working with your aspect that is archetypically Archangel Michael. He's a part of you, and you were on that creative bin that is his energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What's interesting that you can probably relate to, Jean, is I'm like every other author. Like my last book, the little book of Breathwork, my guidance told me I needed to write a book about breathing. And my ego is like, really? Who's going to read a book about breathing? Are you sure? I can't even tell you how many times I argued with myself. I argued with myself for a whole year. Are you sure? Yes, you need to write the book. Well, finally, when I finished writing the rough draft, I got it. It was like, yes, there's so many books about breathing that are intellectual, and, you feel like you're reading this PhD thesis, right? And this book is simple, it's beautiful, it's uplifting, anybody can use it. But so going back to the Archangel Michael thing, so when I started, channeling Archangel Michael, there was none of this arguing with myself like I usually do as an author. I mean, I think anyone with a little humility, always ask yourself, are you sure? Are you sure you're not crazy? Maybe you could be wrong,
And I'm still not sure I'm not crazy. So there we go.
I know exactly. Yeah. But somehow by praying with Archangel Michael, there was just less interference and just more grace.
Yeah.
It was like, why not do it easily?
So. Exactly. So let's talk about breathing, because, that's something I think we take for granted. Everybody breathes, except for everybody who holds their breath. And I think most people don't realize how often they lock up, especially when they're in stress, and hold their breath, and then they're not being fed.
Yes. And if you're listening to this broadcast and you don't remember anything that I said at all, except for this one thing, this is what I'd like you to remember. You can tell whether or not you're in stress by whether or not you're breathing into your belly. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, why is that important? So most of the time, into the upper part of our lungs, when you're doing your upper chest breathing, you are in your sympathetic nervous system. So sure, you've got two sides of your nervous system: the sympathetic, which responds to stress, and the parasympathetic, which allows you to relax. Well, I'm a medical intuitive healer, and there's literally no disease that doesn't have stress somewhere as an aspect to it, right? And so if we can simply train ourselves not to be so stressed all the time, then, we can heal. And as I said, I asked for guidance, and I was told, okay, you need to write this book. And this book, the Little Book of Breathwork, it's about breathing exercises, affirmations, aka mantras, mm-hmm. and hand mudras, which are little gestures that you can do with your hands, right, to change the frequency of energy flowing through your body, right? Yep. And 2 of my 9 published books are about how to heal depression without drugs. In our society, anxiety is even more prevalent than depression, right?
Yeah.
And I've taught yoga now for 24 years. And, I love studying yoga. I love practicing yoga. And, when I go to study yoga, one of the things that I always enjoy the most is actually the breathing exercises. Because even if you are an advanced spiritual student, you can shift yourself into a very deep meditative state very, very quickly with breath work. And especially as women, if you study the brain, women's brains never shut off. Right? There's always that old joke about the man and a woman driving in the car, and it'll be quiet for a little bit. And the woman will say to the man, "What are you thinking about?" And the guy says, "Oh, nothing." And the woman's like, "Really?" Well, especially as women, our brains are very, very active. We have language on both sides of the brain. So by combining breath work, affirmations, and hand mudras, it allows that monkey mind to kind of shut up for a while and allows you to shift into this vibrational frequency where you can feel blissful, right?
I would not have believed you a year ago about this, because I'm a late adopter for yoga. I've only been doing it for 1.5 years now, and I started a little over a year ago doing a form of yoga called Swarupa. And there's a pranayama in the beginning of the Swarupa class that uses the Jive breathing. Mm-hmm. And at first I struggled with it. It's like tighten my throat, make noise, what? But what I have found is that I can do that Jive breathing, and I can drop deep just like that. And I can do it anywhere, anytime, and it has made such a difference in my life, my ability to relax, my ability to de-stress. And especially, I have white coat syndrome, and I had to go to the doctor this afternoon. And every time I go in there, they have a hissy fit because my blood pressure is through the roof. And I come home, I take my blood pressure, it's 120/65, So we just know that. And so today, they were late letting me in. She was running behind, and I just sat out there and did Jive breathing. And when I went in, boom, 120/65.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. And when people study yoga, first of all, some schools of yoga, you're doing great. You're already an advanced student, Jean, because in some schools of yoga, they say not to learn the breathing until you've been doing the physical postures for at least a year. And the reason for that is that most of us carry so much muscular tension that you're literally not able to breathe properly, right? And in yoga, there's 5 flows of breath. So this Ujjayi breathing that you're talking about, that's the most common breath that's taught in yoga classes, right? And there's a constriction at the back of the throat. I call that ocean breath. In my book,
somebody called it Darth Vader breathing in one.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. And in my book, The Little Book of Breathwork, I teach a breathing routine with 8 different breathing exercises that you do just like when you exercise. You warm up, you do your exercise, and then you cool down. So 8 minutes to inner peace is 8 different breathing exercises. You spend about 1 minute on each breath. And what it allows you to do is to clear a tremendous amount of emotional and energetic material in a very, very short period of time. When I'm teaching it to people who are anxious, you can literally cut your anxiety at least by 50% in 8 minutes. Now, back to the big picture, we live in a stressful society. A lot of people are depressed. A lot of people are anxious. A lot of people are tired. Well, a lot of people turn to Xanax. Some students may go, I'm not doing Xanax, I'm doing CBD oil or ashwagandha. And all those things have their place. But what if you could just use your breath and you could cut your anxiety by half?
And it's free.
And it's free. You can do it anytime, anywhere. You don't need a healer. You don't need a coach. And, I'll tell the story about how all this came about, because years ago, I had a client with high blood pressure, okay? And this is a man in his mid-30s, and his high blood pressure was so bad that he was on 3 different high blood pressure medications. Nothing worked. Then his kidneys failed. Because his kidney failed, and kidney failure, by the way, is a side effect of high blood pressure. So this poor gentleman, who was a barber, he wasn't able to work. He wasn't able to support his wife and 2 children. And he had to get up every morning at 4 a.m. to go to this kidney dialysis center. What a life, right? Yeah. And so I do all my work really prayerfully. And I thought, how can I help this gentleman, right? Because the drugs hadn't worked to heal his blood pressure. Well, I tuned in, and clearly he had never learned how to breathe properly. So I got a friend of mine to, go with me with my iPhone in the garden, and I shot a series of videos, which I called 8 minutes to inner peace. And I taught him these breathing exercises so that he could learn to lower his blood pressure naturally. I can tell you so many stories that if it hadn't happened to me or any of my clients, I wouldn't have ever believed it. Here's another really good story. Okay, a lot of people want to lose weight, right? Who likes to diet? I don't like to diet. Heck with that. Okay, so here's a story about eating and weight loss. Now, big picture, when you're stressed, your body secretes cortisol. Now, you're secreting too much cortisol if you carry weight around your belly button. Yeah. So you can just simply put your hand right there and go, okay, am I carrying a little bit extra there? If you're carrying a little bit extra around your belly button, then your cortisol may be too high. So I remember years ago, this lady came to one of my yoga classes, and I talked about breathing and its effect on your stress hormones and how you have to breathe into your belly to go parasympathetic, to allow yourself to relax, right? So all you have to do is check, am I breathing into my belly right now? If you're breathing into your belly, you're not producing the stress hormones. So anyway, this lady actually listened to me. What a concept. And she started doing yoga breathing all day long, every day. Now, she didn't go on a diet. Again, who likes to diet? I don't. I like my chocolate. I like my gummy bears. I like my wine. And so she only came to yoga class once a week, but she started doing yoga breathing all day long, every day, conscious, really paying attention to that. She lost 22 pounds by doing yoga breathing.
That's great.
And again, you go, well, how did that work? Well, what she did was she turned off the stress hormones. Also, when your cortisol level's high, you're going to be reaching for the caffeine and sugar to keep yourself going, right? Yep. So it has a metabolic effect. And the stress hormone cortisol lowers your thyroid. So in the breathing exercises, she actually improved her own metabolism and lost pounds in like 6 weeks. I'm like, how does that happen? So very profound effects.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, you know, and it's something that's part of our body that is all natural and that we don't think about. But when we do think about it and make it conscious, it can have a huge effect, a positive effect on our life.
Yeah. And when you learn how to use your breath and you know, also use your hand mudras to redirect the flow of energy in your body, then you're no longer a victim of stress. So once you understand that you've got to breathe into your belly, okay, well, how do you do that? Well, here's another thing. Here's the second thing you can remember. So first of all, the acupuncture meridians either begin or end in your hands and feet. So simply by changing the configuration of your hands, you're changing the flow of energy in your body. So a lot of times you see pictures of yogis and they've got a thumb and the finger together. Mm-hmm. So, okay, your hands are either up or your hands are down. But if you bring your thumb and finger together like this, it drops your breath energetically down into your rib cage. But if you bring your thumb and the first two fingers together, you'll notice it drops the energy into your belly. So anytime you feel stressed or you want to, you know, if you're having trouble breathing into your belly, just bring the first two fingers together like this, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a real simple way to redirect the energy.
Cool. That's a great tip.
Yes.
So, so they can get this little book of breath work on Amazon or on your website, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's also available as an audiobook, right?
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And one review on Amazon, the gentleman said, you know, I got the ebook, but then it helped my anxiety so much. I got the paperback so I could have it by my bedside, right? Mm-hmm. Right? And again, we have to remember that all these substances that we take have side effects, right? So I'll never forget years ago, a client of mine, she took Ambien, okay, because she was very anxious and she had trouble. Well, this was a professional person, and long story short, she ended up sleepwalking, getting up at some point, getting in her car, and had a wreck. Her dogs were in the car.
Oh my God.
They seized her dogs. She was thrown in jail. And she said, you know, Catherine, the worst thing was that I didn't know whether I had hurt anybody or not, right? So, again, if you can do something naturally, there's no side effects to deep breathing other than calmness, more energy, clearer thinking, and an elevated consciousness.
And how does it get any better than that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this new book that you've got, it's like about to be published.
Yes.
When can we expect that one?
You know, thanks for asking. And Adrienne wrote a very, very kind endorsement for my new book.
It's a great book.
Thank you. Yeah, the new book is called Reading the Soul. And I was printing out the formatted version this morning, but my printer broke, of course.
Oh, no.
It's in audiobook production right now. I published 9 books. 6 of my books are available as audiobooks because so many people would rather listen to them than read them, right? So it's in audiobook production, and I am a terrible editor. I hate editing, and I have to go sit through and make sure that I've caught my grammatical and spelling errors. Not my favorite thing.
No.
So, no, but, fairly shortly here, hopefully in the next month, when, after it's formatted, and it has to be formatted, and the ebook and paperback have to be up for 2 weeks before we can upload the audiobook. And then we'll use it. So I'm not quite sure, but thanks for asking.
Cool. So you still also have a private practice as a medical intuitive, right?
Absolutely, yes.
I don't know how you have time to do all that and write so many books.
It's funny because I talk about slowing down to speed up. And this year, I've written 2 books this year. And although the last one I did start for about a year. But, I'm a big believer in taking time to meditate, taking time to pray, taking time to do breath work. And literally by creating space in your life, right? Unscheduled time, that's when your guidance drops in.
Exactly.
That's when your inspiration drops in. So by slowing down, you actually speed up because you're creating the space when your guides can tell you, hey, by the way, you need to meditate with Archangel Michael every morning, right? So I remember when I was younger, I'm 60 now, every moment of every day was scheduled, right? And now I have large blocks of time that are unscheduled, and I do that on purpose. My favorite time of the day is actually first thing in the morning because I wake up, I start meditating, it's quiet, the phone's not ringing. And, creating this space, whether it's at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day or anytime during the day, when you can have time for a spiritual practice and whatever that looks like for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it doesn't have to be the same as anybody else's, but that is so important. And I do mine first thing in the morning like you. I also do it the last thing before I go to bed at night. I have a gratitude practice that I do every night. That just kind of like caps my day off. And then I leave behind all the garbage of the day so that I sleep really well. And so I don't have to worry about taking Ambien or anything like that, because if I hit the bed and nothing moves for 5 seconds, I'm gone. So
it's your clean conscience, Jean.
Yeah, right. Clean living.
Yeah, knowing that you've been uplifting the planet.
I guess. But, so if somebody would like to take advantage of the work that you do in private practice, what sorts of things can you help people with?
Well, thanks for asking. In a nutshell, there's 2 things that I do. I do medical intuitive readings with people all over the world. I don't have to see you, put my hands on you to know what's wrong or what will work to make them better. For the past 2 years, I've done really fascinating work because there's a place in Costa Rica, and people come from all over the world to do healing retreats there. Before people get there, they fill out a form. I'm Joe Blow, and I eat peanut butter and jelly for lunch, and they form, and then I spend an hour and a half writing an in-depth medical intuitive reading. When I do a medical intuitive reading, I read your physical, energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual body. I make recommendations about how to improve what your environment needs to be like, what your nutrition, supplements, supportive therapies, exercise. I go into what you actually need in order to get better, right? And then the second part of what I do, like you, Jean, I do healing work. I am a master healer with 26 years full-time experience in natural healing. And I enjoy working with challenging cases, right? So I'm kind of like a little detective to kind of figure out, what's not working? Where are you blocked? How can you clear it? And the average person who comes to see me has been to at least 7 other practitioners. So it's very, very rewarding. Most of my clients are really smart people, right? And, they want to get better. They want the next level.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I originally met you. My personal trainer was one of your clients, and he said, you need to meet my kinesiologist. And I was like, sure, because I love kinesiology, and I was fascinated by the work that you do. It's like mine, but different than mine. And you use a lot of flower remedies in your work, don't you?
Yes, I love flower essences. And somebody once asked me, what do I think are the most powerful natural healing remedies? And it's definitely flower essences. Yeah. Flower essences work on the emotional, mental, and spiritual body. Now, I'm not saying I know anything. I probably don't. Okay. But from my experience, okay, you are a soul, right? I think most of your audience can probably agree with that. You are a soul. Your soul controls your mind controls your emotions control your energy body, and your energy system controls what's happening on the physical. So flower essences are vibrational remedies, and they work on the emotional, mental, and spiritual levels. And of course, me being me, I love orchids. I raise orchids in my healing rooms. And my favorite flower essences are made from orchids. Orchids are the most evolved flowers on the face of the earth. They're the highest frequency in the flower kingdom, and they make really, really powerful flower essences, right?
Do you make your own flower essences, or you use other people's?
I have made a flower essence from one of my orchids. It was really a wonderful experience. But most of the time, I recommend flower essences made by other people. A lot of people are familiar with the Bach flower remedies. Bach flowers were invented in the 1920s. Bach flowers are great. However, newsflash, we don't live in the 1920s anymore. Right. And the whole vibration of the planet is speeded up. The orchid essences that I use have all been created actually recently. Mm-hmm. And how it came for me to create one of my orchids essences was, I remember I had a friend in Scotland, and I was very blessed. In 2009, I went to Scotland with 5 other healers from around the world, and we took his flower remedies, and we would meditate on the essences and talk about what these orchid essences were doing. Well, one day I sent him a picture of one of my orchids. It was a Paphiopedilum hainaldianum, okay, if you're an orchid nut like I am. And my friend in Scotland said, your wants to be made into a flower essence. So I made this flower essence. I called it Reverence. And it's a natural healing remedy for depression. Oh, and, if you think about when you're depressed, you're in this, you're weighed down, right? You feel like you've got the weight of the world. The opposite end of the spectrum, if you think about, spectrum red and blue, the opposite of depression is really reverence. In a word, it's like, wow, oh my gosh, we live in the most beautiful world. You are guided and protected every moment of every day by angelic spiritual beings. They love you. They want to uplift you. They want to communicate with you. And when you tune in that frequency of reverence, it's like, wow, you are so loved. You are so guided. You can be so uplifted. And that's the frequency of this flower essence.
That is so cool. Well, we've run out of time, Catherine, so I want to make sure that everybody knows how to reach you. Her website is CatherineCarrigan.com. That's CathereneCarrigan.com. And check her out because her work is amazing. Her books are amazing. There are 9 of them, Amazon or her website. And pretty soon I'll have her back when her new book comes out. So that'll be good too. And next week, my guest is going to be a lovely woman by the name of Jennifer Urezio. And we're going to be talking about her tool, which is soul language. I had a reading with her. She did my soul language reading a couple of months ago, and I was kind of blown away by it. So I said, you got to come on the show so that other people can know what this is. So Come join us next week as well. Same time, same place, right here on Facebook and newearthtelevision.com. Also visit my website, jeanadrienne.com. And right there on the home page, you can either sign up for my newsletter, in which case I will gift you with a free subscription to the online version of the InnerSpeak cards. And you can also click the button that says click here, and you can get a free session with me to experience InnerSpeak and clear away a block that is holding you back. So until next time, remember, people who take responsibility for their lives create the reality they desire. I love you all. Ciao.